TellyCast, the TV industry news review.
Hello and welcome to our second MIPCOM special show, and I'm delighted to be joined by John Elmes, International Editor at Broadcast, making his debut on TellyCast. John, great for you to be on the show.
I'm truly honoured, Justin. You know, I'm a big fan of TellyCast, and to be participating in it feels a bit like signing for a football team. You know, your first day. It's a really, you know, I've got hopes and dreams, but no, I'm thrilled to be joining you.
It's great to have you on. I know you've been warming up on the bench when Jesse and Chris from Broadcast have already been on the shows. So you're the third member of the Broadcast editorial team. So it's great for you to join us. And you're going to talk us through some of the big stories of the first day of MIPCOM.
I am indeed, yeah, Justin. We've conversed via message. Ordinarily, we'd be probably, you know, meeting up, either bumping into each other in the Palais or on the Croisette or in one of the establishments in Cannes to say hi and catch up. But it's been a bit of a weird time. Obviously, when we're not there, and I think that's been slightly reflected in the kind of MIPCOM Online Plus offering. It's been a new experience and a bit quieter than usual, but I have had the benefit of, listening into the first keynote that occurred yesterday, which was a pretty big one, actually. You know, Ted Sarandos, the co-chief executive of Netflix, and he had some really interesting things to say, yeah.
Before we go into that, what's been going on at Broadcast recently, John?
Well, it's been non-stop, Justin. Obviously, our recent rebrand of the magazine, the new edition, which I believe Jesse came on to talk about as well in the past, has been kind of keeping us all busy. But last week I ran a pre-MIP kind of teaser event, a taster event for distribution focus called Showcase Live. It was part of our new content strand, Distributors Showcase, all about the global sales business. And the three sessions that we did were on burning topics that we think are really important and kind of throwing up a lot of question marks in the industry. And it was really good to do a kind of pre-MIPCOM panel session myself, you know, ourselves at Broadcast, and really organise our own set of events and discussions about the global content business.
Fantastic preparation, obviously, for MIPCOM Online Plus. So going on to MIPCOM's biggest TED Talk ever. Its co-CEO of Netflix, Ted Sarandos, made a video appearance. Talk us through his session.
Ted was, and I like what you did there, by the way, the TED Talk. Nice one, Justin. That's a very good one. I wish I had that for myself, to be honest. It's thrown me off my thought. No, so Ted Sarandos, co-chief executive now of Netflix and also chief content officer at the streaming giant. He was being handed the Variety Vanguard Award. That happens at MIPCOM every year, and quite often those sessions can be a bit fluffy. You know, I've certainly heard a few in the past, but he gave a quite wide-ranging round of answers, borne out from the questioning by Cynthia Littleton, the moderator. And he said some really interesting things, and I think it's indicative of the things he said, that each of the international trades that we all look at and read and are a part of covered very different top lines, as it were, from his speech. From my perspective, I thought the interesting point was that he's been, as well as being candid, I noted he was somewhat combative, robust in his comment about certain things. And particularly in this case, it was about the cancellation process that both broadcasters and streaming platforms go through when they cull certain shows and whether to continue extending them. And I think this was born out of some recent, I want to say backlash, but opposition is probably the kindest word to say, to the decision to cancel Glow, the female wrestling drama series that Netflix has, Netflix original series. Yeah,
we covered that on the show a couple of weeks ago, and it was actually they'd started production, I believe, on the fourth series.
They had, and it was the fourth and final series, but Netflix cancelled that, I think, a week ago, around the first week of October, or as you say, a couple of weeks ago. And it wasn't specifically, his comments weren't specifically addressing that, but he was particularly interesting on the fact that he views the measure of success, which is part of the quote old media, and those were his words, old media, meaning traditional media, was the measure of the kind of long-standing measure of success is longevity of the show. And he was saying that is what's defined as success, because it then leads to syndication in the US market. And if you get to the magic 100 episodes, that helps with reruns, and your show can live in perpetuity in the media. But in response to kind of opposition to shows being cancelled earlier on SVOD services such as Netflix, he was saying that this measure of success is a little bit antiquated, and unfortunately undue attention is given to shows that are cancelled on SVOD platforms if they only run for 4 series. But he was making the point that sometimes, it's quite rare for a show to account for 15 years worth of storylines, and in actual fact the content runs out before the number of episodes, the creative content. Shows can get a bit tired, and his point was that we shouldn't just be looking at longevity as the measure of success for a show's life cycle. And I think that was indirectly a kind of a rebuttal to the criticism and opposition that Netflix has seen through the cancellation of shows such as Glow and One Day at a Time and Tuca and Bertie.
It's an interesting stance to take, isn't it? Because surely if a series is popular and a series has got a fan base, it's going to become long running and it's going to be successful and popular and run for a number of seasons. But maybe the numbers that only Netflix has got access to were perhaps tailing off for Glow. So maybe that is the real metric that decision was made on.
Yeah, well, I mean, in the case of Glow, it's important to point out that the cancellation was ascribed to problems caused by coronavirus. So they took the decision. They must have, I think coronavirus and the pandemic had stalled production on it, and therefore they were, I think, possibly forced to take a decision to go elsewhere, possibly because financial outlay in the time of coronavirus is really tough, and people are experiencing the pinch. And if you've got a show, we don't know how much Glow costs. I mean, Netflix is quite proprietorial about how much a show costs. If you've got an expensive show and other expensive shows in your pipeline, maybe the easier thing to do is to cancel the show that has come to a conclusion. They would say a conclusion. I'm sure the fans would say that it hasn't come to a conclusion, and put the money into newer projects. It has to be caveated with those concepts. But you're right. I think it is strange, because he also made the point that a show's shelf life could be 3 seasons or 4 seasons or 6 or 8. So he was kind of getting up into that. 8 seasons is a lot for a show. There aren't many shows out there that have been going for 8 seasons. So I didn't quite understand his point. Also, as you rightly pointed out, something like The Walking Dead, which is going into its 11th series, had its 11th series announced recently. Its 10th series was it was high rated and people were watching. So it is a bit strange that shows are perhaps cancelled sooner rather than later. I mean, I don't know what a perfect shelf life is for a show, but I'm watching 10 series of The Walking Dead and I'm not bored.
Yes. Well, no, it's clearly something that will be an ongoing feature, really, and how long some of these series go on for. And as we don't know what the metrics are for these shows, then I guess if we're really attached to a season or a series, should I say, on Netflix, let's just keep our fingers crossed that everything will get another one. I watch Better Call Saul, and I'm just pretty sure that we're going to get to the final season, which has already been announced. That's interesting stuff. Now, MIPCOM is a place when we're all together physically, the rumours circulate often about executive changes, people moving jobs, people being poached and starting a new big role somewhere. But there's nothing rumour about a new promotion at Fremantle.
We, as you say, Justin, we're always on the lookout for these tidbits and hushed words over a drink in a bar in Croisette on the Croisette about who's going where. As you say, we don't have that opportunity. And Fremantle took the opportunity yesterday to announce their new global head of drama, Christian Vesper. to replace their former head of global drama, Sarah Dool, who was announced that it was going to Red Production Company. That was significant for me in the sense that there weren't many of these announcements floating around, and also because Christian had huge shoes to fill in Sarah Dool. I mean, Fremantle's drama outlay over the last few years has been quite impressive. If you think of some of the titles that they have had and that Sarah Dool has been a part of, the Young Pope and the New Pope and those kind of titles. So his promotion is a significant one, but it makes perfect sense. He's been there for 4 years. I think bringing in someone new to a production entity to oversee scripted, which is already a really expensive part of the content landscape and is also probably the most fractious when it comes to the current situation we find ourselves in the coronavirus outbreak. You have to really have someone who knows the business, the internal business really well from the get-go. So it made perfect sense that he was up, and his expertise in international drama in his predecessing roles. At Sundance, he helped with Deutschland 83, which is obviously a massive trilogy and a quite important drama in the international sphere. So yeah, that stood out for me. Christian's promotion.
Congratulations to him. Obviously, a safe pair of hands by the looks of it for Fremantle there. This year's MIPCOM Online Plus has diversity front and centre when it comes to its keynotes. But I see there's also been a big diversity announcement from a major studio player. Talk us through that.
Yeah, so this was something that came up this morning, and as you say, Justin, I think diversity is not just part of front and centre for MIPCOM, but is front and centre for the entire industry. But particularly for MIPCOM, it's their part of their Change for Good campaign to increase talking points around important areas in the market, in the content market, such as diversity and sustainability. And today's announcement was Viacom CBS Networks International, the international arm of, that's quite a mouthful, of Viacom CBS. They were expanding their no diversity, no commissioning policy, which was introduced into their UK broadcaster Channel 5 earlier this year, but extending it to the 180 countries that they operate in. Now, that was significant in itself, the fact that they're making this mantra, no diversity, no commission, is quite a significant part in itself. But they also said in my colleague Hannah Bowler's story that they were going to dedicate 30% of its budget to commissioning content related to underrepresented groups and issues. Now, that is significant from a couple of points. I mean, 30% of a budget is no insignificant total, and that's Viacom CBS Networks International. So that's, if you think about all the territories they operate in, that's a considerable amount of financial outlay on that kind of content. But also in relation to one of the panels that I did for Showcase Live last week, which was selling diverse content, one of the points is we want more stories from underrepresented voices, but we also need that dissemination, that the sales, the distribution of that content to be widespread as well. And I think by having such a global player as Viacom CBS announcing that these measures that points to their position entirely in the world, I think that represents a real further step change in the kind of things that the TV industry wants to do around diversity. So it was a really significant point. And 30% of its budget, I should say, to commissioning content related to underrepresented groups and issues applies to their Europe, Middle East, Africa, and Asian territories. Although that's not insignificant at all if you think about it. And then they also had a 25% target for Latin America. So if you think about that, in terms of an outlay in those massive territories, that's significant.
No, absolutely. And we've seen that quite a bit of that, haven't we? Announcements, particularly with domestic broadcasts like the BBC, made some big commitments. But it's great, as you say, to see an American international business really putting diversity front and center in terms of their company strategy, as well as just the other commissioning strategy. So it's obviously makes sense from a business perspective for them as well. Absolutely, that's a really significant move, and of course, as part of the keynotes, Sky boss Jeremy Darroch is also talking sustainability today in terms of the wider diversification of TV, if you like. And I was discussing with Paul Robinson in our preview show about whether we've reached a pivotal moment in the greening of the TV industry. What's your view on that, and what can we expect from his keynote?
Yeah, well, as you say, Sky, I think earlier this year, Sky made a big announcement that they've launched a range of initiatives to help deliver quite ambitious target of becoming completely net neutral, zero carbon by 2030. By giving yourself a point in the calendar in the future to become, carbon neutral, cutting emissions, that's set yourself, you've got the goal and you've got to kind of stick by it. Otherwise you leave yourself open for criticism. It's obviously a big part of Sky's mantra, but also Jeremy Darroch as the CEO, he has really been spearheading and picking up the mantle for this for Sky. He's being given a newly created award, the Sustainable Development Goals Award which he was given by Reed Meadham for MIPCOM. So that's kind of signalling what he will be talking about. That will be a big issue for his keynote, I'm sure, and also putting out the information and all the things that Sky have been doing to get to this point, on the road to becoming net neutral by 2030. So I expect it largely to be about sustainability and greening the industry. It will be interesting to hear what he says about that in relation to COVID. I mean, I think one of the things that has emerged from conversations, I've heard you discussing it, Justin, as well, on TellyCast, is the cancellation of international conferences, media events such as MIPCOM and MIPTV and whatever one that's have been gone in the past and been cancelled. That is part of in a converse way, part of the sustainability drive. We're traveling less around the world to go to these conferences, which is helping our own green efforts ourselves. The TV industry routinely clocks up the air miles. Ted Sarandos said he misses the global travel that comes with his job. But I was thinking when he said that in his keynote yesterday, I was thinking, well, yeah, but you're offsetting your carbon footprint quite well in that. I think that's a useful thing. You should probably you had an opportunity to point to that, but he didn't. It's going to be interesting to see what he says. I mean, I've been given a kind of sneak preview of his quotes, which are embargoed, so I can't reveal them, sadly. But I think sustainability is going to be key, and I think he'll be, someone in Jeremy Darroch's position as CEO of Sky will be in a good position to give off the right message to the international TV industry that the world needs to do better on sustainability as well. And
hopefully this will be a positive byproduct, if there are any, of this current pandemic, that we're all going to take a little bit more care and a little bit more thought about our actions and the implications of them. As you say, not being at a MIPCOM, that's 30,000 flights saved, I suppose, in one go. And although we want to be there and we wished we were there, then maybe it's looking at all of those other events around the calendar. And I know we've discussed it before on the show, but maybe there's some that maybe we might consider doing those virtually. Now we're in the habit of spending a lot of our time on Zoom and everything else, but interesting stuff. And let's hope it is that real turning point, because I think we all know that we need to do something. So hopefully it's a nudge and a positive outcome from this awful pandemic.
We've had many discussions about programming that costs a lot from a green perspective. We've talked about how much extra costs COVID is putting on productions, which is really important. And, with the bottom line always high up in people's minds, when they're putting together TV, which is an expensive business, it's important to be able to think about ways to, drive down costs, but also help the environment. I think that's one thing that, maybe come out of the as you say, a positive byproduct, whatever that is, from COVID, is perhaps people will think twice about how to put together one of those really expensive productions that involves a lot of international travel and multiple voices, and kind of introduce ways of getting around that, be it through collaborating with people on the ground in the territory that you want to go to. So therefore, you don't need to take a load of production equipment and team with you to a location. And I think that will set up some really important conversations from the production side, not just the moving around to go to international events.
And finally, looking at MIPCOM Online Plus, it's been said by many people that it's a distributor's market this year, more than anything else. Have you seen any interesting announcements about shows that are traveling well?
Yeah, I have. And it's not, I wouldn't say it's the super glamorous big international dramas that often are showcased at MIPCOM and stuff like that. We often read stories about people launching their huge international dramas with the biggest amount of talent that traverse the world and have been snapped up by the Netflixes and the Amazon Primes for global rights and have big budgets attached to them. It was something that I noticed yesterday, a very domestic drama, an English drama, a drama I think that will point to your own heart from, set in the Yorkshire Dales, Justin. Playground Entertainment's All Creatures Great and Small reboot, which was aired on, aired on Channel 5 recently, and it it smashed Channel 5 drama records when it first came on. It's gone around the world. It's a drama about a young country vet in the Yorkshire Dales in the 1930s. Doesn't necessarily scream international smash hit, but it's been picked up by Acorn, the AMC network's streamer, for South and Central America. I imagine, a story about the Yorkshire Dales being broadcast in South and Central America. I don't think we can.
That's right. It's my backyard.
Exactly. And also Acorn have picked that up for the UK, Ireland, and Malta. So it's a very English, very domestic drama that has gone around the world, and it's obviously also been picked up in places as far flung as New Zealand and Australia and Asia. So I just thought that was a really interesting, a positive TV story, because we've been told recently that, buyers and commissioners are looking for feel-good escapist content. And this apparently, absolutely, I haven't seen it yet, to my chagrin, absolutely pertains to that. It is a very feel-good, bucolic, domestic drama that has been picked up by international broadcasters and platforms, because that is what the content people want. They want good, feel-good, escapist content.
Yorkshire content is what they want.
Content. That's exactly what it is. Exactly.
Yeah. Excellent. Very good. Well, no, like you, I haven't seen All Creatures Great and Small yet. So obviously I grew up with the original, giving away my age there. No, it's a fantastic series, I'm sure. Certainly the books are fantastic, and the original series was too. So congratulations to everybody involved in that show. Great to see some international success. So, well, John, we've come to the end of our MIPCOM roundup for today. Thank you so much for taking the time out in what's an extremely busy time to speak to me. And I hope you're going to come back on the show at some point very soon.
I would love to. If I haven't completely burnt my bridge by appearing on this for the first time, I would be delighted to come back in the future, Justin.
Fantastic. Well, good luck for the rest of MIPCOM Online Plus. We'll see you soon.
Take care.
Well, that's it for our second MIPCOM special show. Tomorrow, I'll be joined by Deadline's international editor, Jake Cantor, as we cover off the key talking points of Day 3 of MIPCOM Online Plus. Until then, stay safe.